I like your background, Tom. Very impressive.
Why, thank you, Dr. Martell, and it's so good to see you.
Good to see you.
I don't mean to take any time away from the meeting or assembly, but I want to thank you for all the help that your office has been given to me and my staff over here. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for reaching out to us. It's really helped keep it down. Appreciate it. But I'm very impressed. I got to get a new background. I've decided, we were laughing. Everyone's getting the new one. We have a board member who pretends he's in Hawaii, and up comes a Hawaii scene.
Hawaii sounded pretty good right now.
Mr. Booker, Steve, do we have the chairman prepared to call the meeting to order?
I don't know if Chairman Booker's on there yet or not.
Yeah, I did see him earlier.
Okay.
While we're waiting, can we see Mr. Kelly's cute cat? Oh, that is just a beautiful cat. Thank you for sharing, Mr. Kelly.
That's Snowball's probably final appearance on County Board Zoom TV.
Oh,
He's getting adopted out tomorrow.
oh, what a beautiful cat. I like the name too, Snowball.
Do we otherwise have a public safety quorum?
I can't see everybody, Mr. Feller, so I don't know who else is on.
And I believe we do.
We do.
Yeah, we have Mike Syntax, we have Paul Arena, myself, Angie Gorel, you, Dan Fellers, and I believe Dorothy Red is on.
Would there be any objection if I get us started?
No?
You've got a quorum.
All right. Then I will call to order the Public Safety Committee meeting for Thursday, October 1st, 2020. Let's go around the room, call the roll. Mr. Westcott. Mr. Zintak.
Present.
Mr. Arena.
Here.
Mrs. Gorel.
Present?
Red.
Present.
And myself, Dan Fellers. We have a quorum. Can I get a motion to approve the June 17th, 25th, 29th, and July 15th, 2020 minutes?
So moved?
Motion by Mr. Zintak, seconded by Ms. Gorel. Any objections to approving the minutes? Seeing none, we'll cast a yes vote for everyone present. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak? The Public Safety Committee? Seeing none? Seeing none, we will move on to item E, a resolution approving subcontractor agreement for the Department of Justice Violence Against Women grant. May I have a motion?
So moved?
Motion by Mr. Zintak, seconded by Ms. Gorel, and discussion, and who is here to speak about this? All right, Mr. Jakeway, floor is yours.
Thank you, everyone. Good to join you this evening. First off, I'm pleased to report that the Circuit Court has approximately $2 million worth of state and federal grant funds budgeted for this upcoming fiscal year. Those are all coming in to provide services and staff and programs to our community. This contract here is in relation to our Abuse in Later Life initiative, a newer initiative, and it's funded by the Department of Justice in their Division of Violence Against Women. I'm going to allow, if I can, Anna Grzelczyk, she's our project manager, who briefly can just tell us about that project, specifically about what this contract covers with Prairie State Legal Services. Anna?
Real quick, let the record reflect that Mr. Booker has joined us. Mr. Booker, I'm going to turn the meeting back over to you. We are on item E.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fellers. I appreciate it. I was there for 30 seconds, but I'm glad you took over. I was hoping you'd do that. Mr. Jakeway, I hope I didn't interrupt. And Anna, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Booker, and thank you, Tom. Hello, everyone. I'm Anna Grzelak, the project coordinator for the Winnebago County Enhanced Training and Services to End Abuse in Later Life program, also known as the Abuse in Later Life Grant. Tom Jakeway and myself were here and attended the June 26th meeting of this committee when the amended contracts for Remedies Renewing Lives and Rockford Sexual Assault Counseling were presented and approved. I know many of you are already familiar with this grant, but I would still like to take the opportunity to provide an overview along with some updates since last we were here. This project is funded for, can everyone still see me?
I think that's,
We see the compensation.
Yeah, I think that was a screen share by someone else. Just, I think you can go on,
Okay.
Anna, if
Okay.
Mr. Booker will allow.
No problem. This project is funded for $400,000 in total and does not require any county matching funds. The Abuse in Later Life grant addresses elder abuse, neglect, and exploitation, including domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking against victims who are age 50 and older. Age 60 and older is the age range most associated with elder abuse. This grant lowered the age requirement for services down to 50 in order to address the gap that for existing services that often exists for victims who are between the ages of 50 and 60. Through this grant, we have established an Abuse in Later Life Coordinated Community Response, the ALL-CCR, chaired by the Honorable Judge Randy Wilt. We have sent teams to receive training, including sending 3 assistant state's attorneys and 4 judges to training last fall. The National Clearinghouse on Abuse in Later Life, NCAL, is currently working on creating an 8-hour all-day in-person training for law enforcement and the 8-hour all-day service provider cross-training, recreating those to an online format due to the COVID pandemic. And those trainings will be made available to us all next year. Since we were here last June, the Abuse in Later Life advocate employed by Remedies and funded 100% through this grant was hired. Her name is Talea Gordon-Scott. She went through the 40-hour domestic violence training through Remedies and sexual assault training through RSAC. As of last week, she began having office hours at the Family Peace Center. She will be at the Family Peace Center approximately 36 hours per week. And starting today, now will be located 4 hours weekly on Thursday mornings at Lifescape. The contract being presented to you tonight is a new contract for Prairie State Legal Services to provide civil legal assistance 3 hours a week to assist survivors age 50 and older who are victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and elder abuse in addressing their immediate safety needs. This would include a staff attorney providing legal assistance for survivors requesting an attorney's services and legal advice in seeking an emergency or preliminary order of protection, civil no contact order, or removal of their abuser's name on a legal document. The managing attorney of Prairie State Legal Services will provide supervision to staff attorneys who provide civil legal assistance through this program. So that's the information that I'd like to share. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask myself or Tom.
Aaron, you're muted there if you're trying to speak.
There we go. Okay. Thank you, Anna. Are there any questions for Anna regarding this grant? All right. Very good. Thank you again. And we'll move on to item F.
We do have to vote on it, Mr. Booker.
Oh,
We've motioned in a second, but we do need to vote.
Yeah, we need a motion to approve this resolution.
We have the motion in a second. We just need the vote.
Gotcha. Very good. Boy, this falling in and out of technology here is really efficient, isn't it, at times? All right, so we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Fellers, for the little boost. Thank you very much. So now we can move on to item F. And it is another resolution authorizing the chairman of the county board to execute a memorandum of agreement between Winnebago County, the 17th Judicial Circuit Court, and Remedies Renewing Lives Incorporated. Can I get a motion? Motion by Mr. Fellers and a second by Mr. Zintak. I see discussion by Mr. Chapman and Mr. Thompson. I'll go with Steve Chapman first, please.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Items F and G that are on the agenda were not ready as far as resolutions and agreements, so those will be put off to your next meeting. We also will have an agreement with Rosecrans, and we can take all three of them at the same time at your next meeting.
Okay, Mr. Thompson, is that what you were going to clarify?
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
All right, so we are now removing items F and G, and we'll move that to our next Public Safety Committee meetings.
Since we motioned and seconded item E, should we just be best to just have a quick vote to make a motion to lay that over to the next meeting?
Yeah, I like that idea. That sounds real good. So we'll take a motion by Mr. Fellers to lay it over to the next meeting and a second by Mr. Zintak. All those in favor to lay these items over to the next meeting, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, these items will be laid over to the next meeting. Have any other matters for the Public Safety Committee? Seeing none, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Fellers, second by Mr. Zintak. All those in favor of adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Hearing none, Public Safety Committee meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Jakeway. Anna, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Booker. Thank you, everyone.
Mr. McDonald, you can now move into operations and admin.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I'm just double checking to see that we have a quorum. I haven't double checked that number. Do we have a quorum? Have you looked?
I believe you do.
Indeed, we do. Thank you. I've got my screen set up. I don't know why it's different. I don't have the usual tile view. I'll call this meeting to order, the Operations Administrative, Thursday, October 1st, 5:46 p.m. We'll start off with a roll call. Mr. Salgado?
Present.
Mr. Arena?
Here.
Ms. Red?
Present.
Mr. Hoffman?
Present.
Mr. Buchita?
Here.
Ms. Crosby?
Here.
Outstanding. Definitely have a quorum. And I'm also here. Mr. Thompson, is there anyone signed up for public speaking?
No, there's not, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. I will omit that portion. We'll move on to item D, resolution renewing garbage collection services contract, and I so move. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Second by Mr. Salgado. The item is before us. I believe I saw Ann Thompson. Ann, are you with us? Are you here to speak? There we go.
Go ahead, Ann.
Ann Johns, excuse me. Mr. Thompson or Chapman.
Yes, I can speak to this. This is a renewal for garbage collection services in Winnebago County facilities. The purchasing department went out for bid. We are looking at a 2-year contract with the possibility of 3 years of renewal beginning in.
Mr. Thompson, I'm off mute now.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry,
Ann.
I apologize. I didn't get my phone off mute correctly. Yes,
Okay,
we
go
went
ahead.
out for bid. Thank you. We went out for bid soon after I started here in 17. The services have done well. We've had one renewal. There's basically 2.5 years left. We would have normally renewed this in February or March, but with COVID, it really took a back seat. The nice thing is the vendor has not raised the rates since 2017, and they're not going to raise the rates for another year. And then starting in February of next year, there's a small increase and then one more small increase, and by that time we'll be rebidding. So I suggest we approve this because it's normally we wouldn't renew for a 2.5 year period, but it just worked out like that because of COVID. And then you'll see on the last page what the rates are, the differences, just fairly minimal.
Ms. Johnson, I've got a question. You said we have 2.5 years left and then mentioned that this is better, but you also mentioned several rate increases.
The rate increases will basically be the last 2-year period, but otherwise they've held the rates for the first 3 years.
So the 2.5 years.
Which is pretty good for a vendor nowadays.
Are there any rate increases included in the next 2.5 years of our current contract?
Well, this is our current contract. It's time to renew it. There's no increase until February of next year. And then that is a 2.6% increase. And then the final year, the 5th year, there'll be a 3% increase. I asked them to give us what the rate increases would be now if we signed a longer term, this 2.5 year period versus just doing a 1 year. And these rates are quite a bit lower than it would have been if we would have kept coming back year after year for the next 2 years.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this, Mr. Arena?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ann, can you explain why the cost for the service at the courthouse is so much higher than everything else?
I can sure try. I have to look at that page. One of the things I know that goes on at the courthouse is behind the courthouse or alongside it, there's extra dumpsters that are then used for overflow, like our recycling dumpsters there. So all the recycling goes into that one dumpster, for example. How far down on this list is it?
It's the second item. So it's $500 a month. $505 a month.
Oh, yes, I suspect it's dumped more often. I'd have to go and look at the master sheet, which would show what size equipment we have there, dumpsters, and then how often they're dumped. But I do know our recycling is there and our extra things are there. Extra dumpsters are there.
Okay. You would think that the jail would generate the most trash for the nursing home.
No, that's true. But the jail has a compactor. And the compactor is completely different because that compacts. And then starting now this year, just starting within the last 2 months, I made arrangements for them to have their own recycling because otherwise they weren't recycling. Everything was going into the dumpster, those big cans, boxes, everything from the food. And now we're going to break that out. And then the pallets are being recycled as well. So we've actually bought a used compactor for them because theirs was failing. And we're actually building an indoor door around one of the loading docks for about $8,000. And that money's coming out of commissary funds so that now the new compactor, there's no reason for someone to go outside. Up until now, prisoners were going outside and putting trash into the into the compactor along with officers. So we've completely redone that, and that's why the cost there is not quite as bad because of the compactor.
I see. Okay,
And
thank you
River
for
Bluff
that
also
explanation.
has a compactor.
Are there any other questions on this matter? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there anyone opposed? Seeing none, passes unanimously. Moving on to item E, resolution approving HVAC scheduled service agreement, and I so move. Can I have a second? Mr. Hoffman seconds the items before us. Ms. Johns, did you?
Yes, I'd be happy to speak to this one. Train is what we have installed at 1 to 5 buildings. We have Train equipment installed, and it's getting older. Hello?
Yep, I'm sorry, I'm muting.
Oh, okay. Okay. We have Train equipment at 5 locations, and it's getting older, so we really need this maintenance agreement that includes all the bells and whistles as far as keeping the equipment running. And if you look at Resolution Exhibit A, it's all about what they're going to do at each site. As far as that equipment, what they're going to do, the startup, everything. And that's why it's fairly costly. We are tied into a cooperative agreement contract, which has saved us from what it was 3 years ago. This thing is quite a bit less expensive than it used to be. And it works well. And they've built in a 4% increase for each year over the next 3 years. But that's typical with Train, just like with our elevator contracts. It's the same thing.
Is there any discussion for this? Mr. Arena?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This contract or program includes the public safety building, and that system is going to be shut down shortly. So I don't think it should be included as part of a long-term agreement. Are we able to break it out? Or how, if this gets shut down in the next 3 months, what happens?
Well, that's a good point. And if you look at the list, also the 401 Division Street building is on there as well. So that's a good question. And it's a question Sean would have to answer. He's off, and this thing needs to get moved. I don't know. Are we completely shutting off the public safety building, heating and air conditioning?
Yep, it's going to happen.
Even though that heats the corners offices?
Yep. But
we're working on that, Ann, with Sean.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
What's 401 Division? I'm not familiar with that.
401 Division Street is the original health department building. And over the last probably 18 months, 2 years, they've moved from there to 555.
Okay.
And the health department board technically owns the Division Street building, and they haven't decided if they're going to sell it, donate it, or tear it down.
Right, but they're heating
So
it?
we still have to keep it. We still have to heat the building minimum so nothing freezes. It's quite a large building.
Right, but is the health department paying the utility bills there?
Each of the buildings have accounts that the money comes out of. Sean manages all the maintenance, and he manages those accounts, but they're set up like River Bluff. Money comes out of a River Bluff account. Division Street, Steve could probably tell you more about how Division Street is worked, but yes, it definitely is charged to the health department. And that's why there's a separate charge for each.
Charge to the health department then?
Yes, as far as I know. Steve, do you know any different than that?
Mr. Chapman, can you help with this, or Mr. Thompson?
I believe anything related to that building would be paid out of the health department budget, as that building is still currently under their control.
Yes.
And if you go to page 8, it breaks down the buildings, and actually the public safety building is our least expensive. least expensive building to operate. That's $2,700 a year versus the health department building, which is $9,700 a year.
Right, but so when we shut down the system in a couple months, this contract is for how long? 3 years?
This is, it's for 3 years. I can check with them to see if we won't renew, that line item for year 2 and 3. I don't know. I mean, I can't. Are you really shutting off the entire train system?
Yeah. The building's empty. Sean and I walked through it. It's empty.
Now I'm willing to make a motion to remove the PSB from this item.
I'll second it.
Okay, that works.
Discussion of the amendment. So the amendment is to remove the public safety building from this agreement. Is there any discussion about removing the public safety building from this agreement? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye for the amendment.
Aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed to removing the public safety building? The resolution has been amended to omit the public safety building.
And so do you suggest I have them go month to month then on that building?
I agree with Mr. Arena. We have an urgency to shut this down. It's costing us too much in utilities for an empty space. And I urge Mr. Franks and anybody else to get this wrapped up as soon as possible.
Okay.
If,
all right.
If I could just comment on that, and if Sean feels that there's something imminent and a reason to have this service available to us for the next, say it's 6 months at the worst case scenario, then we can revisit that separately, maybe next or at our next operations meeting. But we really are pushing to get this wrapped up. So,
and the only thing that kind of concerns me is Sean is the one that put this together with Train as far as what he wanted at which sites. And he's the one that gave it to me then to bring forward. So he knew, if he would have known that, I don't know why he would have done this. But no, that's fine. Sean will be back on the 5th. So I'll check with him before the board meeting, then I'll know more anyway about that. We'll have to go month to month, I think, because we need some kind of an agreement in case there's a big failure and we have to spend a lot of money to fix something. Has the city completely moved out?
no, but the city space is not serviced by this equipment, or it's serviced, a small portion of it is, but they have a residential heating and cooling unit in a portion of their space. So
Good.
If there was some emergency, we could just install equipment for this space we need to heat. The only part of that building that's being occupied or used is the section that's on the west side of Court Street, going through on the first floor that's where
the entrance
is. And the
entrance, part of it, the entrance
and
into the courthouse. Yes,
right.
Yes.
So Sean may have put this together before he and I toured the building.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
Mr. McDonald, I'll just suggest that Ann and I work out the details with the facilities director and possibly bring back a report on this at your board meeting before you approve the resolution on the county board floor.
Yes, and then I just don't want to, we're already past the October deadline, so I don't want to go too far because they could just deny the whole thing and then we'd be paying out of pocket at $164 an hour for any time they come. So I think it's a good idea to remove that one. That's simple enough. And I'll have them send me a revised, as far as the signature pages. Would you like me to check with Dr. Martell about the Division Street building too?
No, I think that was resolved.
I think we need to be mindful of division and look at reducing and figure out what we're going to do there. But I'd like to go back to the PSB. Mr. Thompson, Mr. Chapman, Ms. Johns, you're all here. Ms. Johns, you made a comment about a major repair. I think hopefully I can speak for the majority of this committee that we're not interested in making major repairs in that facility right now on the public safety building. something we want to wind down, we want to bring to an end. If there is a major malfunction or major repair that needs to be done, I don't know that we're willing to spend the money on that right now.
Okay.
May I speak, please?
Yes,
I
Ms.
have a
Coral.
question. Mrs. Johns, is
Yeah.
that building run by hot water heat?
Oh, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Because is run by hot water heat? So in
I
2
don't
months,
It's on a
know.
boiler system. It's on a boiler
That's-
system.
so in 2 months, if we have a big heavy freeze and we have turned all that stuff off and haven't done it properly, we're going to have a flood. So keep that in mind. I've seen too many floods over the years because that frost comes early, that freeze does, and the next thing you know, and those old pipes are starting to break. We still have underneath that the coroner's place. Am I correct?
Yes. Yes.
And all go down into the coroner's part, and you're going to have more expense than you can even think of what this contract is worth. So think about that real carefully. Those of you who have ever dealt with hot water heat or steam heat, whatever you want to call it, that can be a real problem if the freeze comes fast and there's no heat in that building. Thank you.
I think you, Ms.
Well, and then I think a lot of this heating ductwork is part of the stuff that's wrapped in asbestos, I believe.
Now I would like to make the comment too to Ms. Coral that you're as passionate about River Bluff as I am as about public safety. The fact is that our funds are getting low. We don't have enough money to do everything we want to do. So I would rather support public safety than to continue dumping money in the PSP. And Ms. Coral, I don't mean to speak for you, but I feel like you would rather support River Bluff than to continue to spend money on the PSP. So
River Bluff has
we
nothing to
need
do
find
with,
a town.
excuse me, River Bluff has nothing to do with this. But if you have
Money
ever
does,
lived,
Ms. Coral. This is about
I
money and
understand.
spending money properly.
I'm not on your committee, but I also know that when hot water, steam, heat, when those pipes burst, you have a flood. And it's got nothing to do with River Bluff, nothing to do with the building over on Division. Dr. Martell's online. She can tell you about that, because if it's not properly taken care of prior to the freeze coming, you can have an expense that you don't have insurance to cover. Just keep that in mind, especially if it goes downstairs into the coroner's office. Keep that in mind. Nothing at all to do with River Bluff, believe me.
It has to do with money, Ms. Coral.
Money is money, no matter where you spend it. And if you aren't proactive on these things prior to what could happen, it could cost you 10 times more than what you're planning on spending to start with. Keep that in mind.
Thank you, Ms. Coral. Mr. Arena.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could just comment to Mrs. Gorel's concerns. Sean Franks and I walked through the whole building. Based on our conversation and what I had seen, we can put together a plan to shut down the building in a organized way without causing any damage and providing heat and hot water and cooling to the spaces where we need to. So I had already had a conversation with Mr. Thompson about this, and he was going to be having conversations with Mr. Franks, and we're going to bring back in Prairie Forge to finish their work. So, you know, from everything I found, we can do this without leaving ourselves with a problem. So I just wanted to ease your concern.
Is there any other discussion on this amended resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed to the amended resolution? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. We'll move on to item F, a resolution authorizing the chairman of the county board to execute a lease for space at 555 North Court Street with the Winnebago County Health Department, and I so move. Can I have a second? Ms. Crosby seconds. Thank you very much. Discussion. Ms. Johns or Mr. Chapman? Mr. Chapman, can you speak to this?
Yes, I can speak initially to it, and then if there are any questions, I'll turn it over to Dr. Martell. As you remember, the county did receive a grant for contact tracing from the, I think it was from the state of Illinois. That is currently, I believe it's been implemented. We had space available in the building at 555 on the 3rd floor, which we've negotiated a lease with the health department. The building is actually owned by the county, and the health department leases space out of there also. But this is, I believe, a 1-year lease, and I don't know if it'll continue on beyond that. I guess it depends on what kind of funding sources we get, but it will occupy space on that 3rd floor. I think at a square foot rate of $14.25 a square foot, which is about $108,000 a year. There's also additional money of $22,000 for janitorial work and another $18,000 for additional improvements that needed to be done. So it's really a good way of filling up that space and actually helping out the county, because we do own that particular building. So if Dr. Martell has anything she wants to add to what I talked about.
Dr. Martell, have you anything to add?
No, we wanted to rent within our own buildings and to have the money returned to us in our county.
The 1425 square foot, 22,000, does that go back to the general fund then, Mr. Chapman or Mr. Thompson?
No, actually, it's part of we have a separate enterprise fund that we've set up for that particular building. It's used to pay debt service on the building. We issued bonds back in 2010 to buy that building, so it's used for that and any improvements over there. But it's money otherwise the county might have to come up with in the future. So,
outstanding, Mr. Arena.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I saw in the lease that it includes replacing carpet. How much is that going to cost, or is it just funded by the revenue from the rental, or give me the details of that, please?
I believe Dr. Martell, are you familiar with that?
Yes, it was negotiated in the square foot per lease, because with a carpet, when the Human Services moved from City of Rockford, we were to replace that when they left.
So where's so the money's, we're going to pay for it with the rent that we're receiving. That's
No,
where
we paid for it under separate contract.
it's already been done.
Yep.
But the lease says that we're doing it, right? Or am I
Yes,
misunderstanding
you're
what I'm
paying
reading?
us to do it.
Pardon me?
We are paying the county to replace the carpet.
In addition to the rent that you're paying?
I think you're muted.
I can't get, that's the bandwidth. I'm going to pull up my copy of the agreement. Give me a moment.
While you do that, Dr. Martell, what was said earlier was 1425 a square foot, 22,000 for janitorial and 18,000 for improvements. I would have to think that 18,000 for improvements covers the carpet.
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's fine, as long as it's paid for and we don't have to take it from any existing fund, then it's.
No, the intent of this agreement was to give building improvement on that space so that when we vacate it after the contact tracing grant, it can be leased out to another tenant.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
Is there any discussion on this matter? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Is there anybody opposed? Looks like the resolution passes unanimously. On to other matters. Is there anyone else that has anything for other matters? I'd just like to interject really quickly. I'd like to work through operations on a resolution condemning the health department for the closing of bars and restaurants, which is upcoming on Saturday. We're still learning more about it and moving forward. It is a bother to me that the big box stores can stay open, but the smaller bars and restaurants are really shouldering the burden of what's going on, presumably starting Saturday. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Martell. But I'm going to see if I can work to get a resolution passed. And we may have a quick meeting prior to the board meeting next Thursday to see if we approve or deny that resolution opposing that action. Is there any other discussion for this evening? Seeing none, can I have a motion to adjourn? Ms. Crosby, seconded by Mr. Hoffman. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
All right, we'll get started with the finance then. So get this going. I believe pretty much everybody, we should have a quorum. Yes. Mr. Hoffman.
Present.
Oh, you are there. Okay. All right. So I'd like to call to order the Finance Committee. It is October 1st. It's 6:14. Do roll call with me. Mr. Salgado present. Mr. Hoffman.
Present.
Mr. Girl.
Present.
Mr. McDonald.
Here.
Mr. Butita.
Here.
Mr. Fiducia. I don't see he's online. Mr. Schultz.
Here.
All right, thank you. Let the record reflect, we do have a quorum. Our next item is, can I get a motion to approve of July 16, 23rd, 2020 minutes? Mr. Hoffman, motion. Can I get a second by Mr. Girl? Thank you. Discussion on those minutes. Seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Mr. Chapman or Mr. Thompson, is there anyone that signed up to speak today?
I don't believe so.
All right, we'll omit the public comment and move on to item E, which is a budget amendment 2020-024, County Highway FedEx fee transfer. Can I get a motion and a second? Motion by Mr. Girl, second by Mr. Hoffman. Thank you. I'll hand it over to Steve to talk over the budget amendment, and we'll have discussion. Steve, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment is just moving monies that we received from FedEx and also Quick Start access fees. Those are being used to pay for a portion of the project out on Baxter Road, and all we're doing is moving those monies into the appropriate fund so they can be used for that purpose. Nothing other than that, just more of a transfer between the funds.
Any questions from anyone? All right, seeing none, all in favor of approving budget amendments, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Budget amendment has been approved. Our next item, I believe it's parking agreement with BMO Harris. I believe Mr. Chapman can talk to this, but I believe we might have to table this for next meeting.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I had put this on the agenda last Friday, and unfortunately, I haven't been in the office along with everyone else since that time. So I need to locate that agreement, which was my intent before tonight. So if we could hold this over for 2 weeks, then we can talk to it at that time.
Okay, so we'll have that discussion at a later time for the parking agreement. We'll move on to our next item, which is letter G. It's the 2020 tax levies. And I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Chapman to kind of go through all of them. I know he gave a summary, and then each one has its own tax levy ordinance on that. So Mr. Chapman, do you want to talk to that?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me. These are the tax levies based on the action taken at the last board meeting regarding the 2021 budget. We have them broken out by, obviously, the individual levies. I think I did attach the summary sheet that we do for each year when we do approve the levies, and then also the individual levies themselves. Just going through them, the general fund levy is $16,003,000. Health Department, $2,613,000. Detention home, $1,836,000. County Highway, $2,378,000. County Bridge, $235,000. Federal aid matching, $1,780,000. Veterans Assistance, $658,000. Tort Judgment, $3,353,000. IMRF, $5,756,000. Social Security, $3,546,000. Historical Museum, $121,000. River Bluff Nursing Home Operations, $1,009,000, and the Children's Advocacy Tax, $155,000, comes up to $40,334,000.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions regarding the tax levies that were presented, essentially with the analysis summary that was attached? All right, seeing none, Mr. Chapman, do we have to take a vote on these and approve these tonight, or is this more for informational?
We need to make a motion and approve the levies so we can put them on the county board agenda for next meeting to lay over.
Okay.
So
Sounds
you can
good.
take them all at once, I believe.
That's what I'm going to do. So can I get a motion to approve the tax levies for, and I'll read off what they are: the general, the health department, the detention home, the county highway, the county bridge, the federal aid matching, veterans assistance, the tort judge fund, the IMRF fund, the Social Security, the historical museum, the nursing home operation, and the children's advocacy tax. Can I get a motion and a second? Thank you, Mr. Girl, for the motion, Mr. Hoffman for the second. Discussion. All right, see none. All in favor of approving the tax levies as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right. No. Let the record reflect. Mr. Schultz was a no. Everybody was a yes. Thank you. Our next item that we have on the agenda is, bear with me, is pending litigation. So can I get a motion to go into closed session? Mr. Girl, can I get a second? Mr. McDonald, Mr. Hoffman. So I'm going to read off, take roll call. Mr. Salgado, yes. Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
Mr. Girl,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Butita,
Yes.
and Mr. Schultz.
Yes.
All right, we are going to go into closed session. I don't know who has control of the YouTube live stream, so if we could take that down, I'd greatly appreciate that. So bear with us. Help desk. I don't know if I can see here. Is there someone from the help desk that can take the stream down for closed session?